Hello, Willowdale and beyond. Welcome to Meet Your Neighbor, NeighborLink North York's weekly interview series. Each episode, we introduce you to new neighbors in the spirit of building a more connected community. I hope you've had a great start to your week. I'm Sebastian Biasucci, and I'm very excited for you to meet our guest tonight, Membership Director of the North York Historical Society, Susan Goldenberg. Her team helps to preserve our suburb's history. The Historical Society has been around since 1960 and runs a monthly speaking series and a variety of other programs. We're so glad you stopped by on this very exciting day. Today, June 13th, marks North York's centennial anniversary. I'll let Susan explain what that means. And before we meet her, allow me to introduce your host, Lily Chang.
Good evening, Willowdalers. Thank you for joining us on this Monday night. We're so excited to have this chat because I am a relatively new person to Willowdale or North York when you compare it to its 100-year history. So tonight we have a chance to learn more about how this community came together, what housing prices were in 1940s. I think that might be a painful fact for us to learn together. And what is it that makes our neighbors so curious about the history of where we live? So let us give a warm welcome to Susan Goldenberg. Hi,
Thank you.
Susan.
Hi, Lily. Thank you very much.
It's wonderful to have this chance to chat with you. I hear earlier today you actually went to the birthday party for North York. Can you share a little bit with us about what that was like?
Yes, we held it was organized by the North York Historical Society, and it was held in the mall of the North York Central Library. And they had a copy of the petition that was signed in 1921 to make North York independent. That was a petition that was gathered across what was then a very sparsely populated North York. And Mayor Tory spoke, and the councilors, Pasternak and Carroll and Fillion were there. And Mayor Tory told a cute story. He lived when he was a young man in a house that was in which the boundary of North York and Toronto crossed through the house. And so he paid taxes in two directions, and he got garbage collection several times a week, once from North York and once from Toronto.
Wow. So a group of citizens did not want to be a part of Toronto anymore and wanted an identity of their own, and they signed a petition and became North York. And I imagine there were farmers in that mix because North York had farm fields back then. Is that correct?
Yes, North York was solely rural then, with farms dotted throughout the area. And they were part of what was called the Township of York, a much bigger area that included Toronto and Etobicoke and East York. And North York felt that it was being overtaxed, getting no services in return. They especially wanted good roads to be able to take their farm products to market. Instead, in Toronto, instead the roads were rutted no matter how much they complained. And they had no political representation. They wanted out.
And so, what is the significance now? What does it mean to us that North York is now 100 years old, do you think?
Well, on becoming independent, North York established its own government, which made it installed infrastructure that made it possible for North York to modernize, to transition to urban. And it became a major housing center for young men returning from World War II who wanted to move with their young families into an area that was cheaper than Toronto. But North York has always been more than a bedroom suburb because from the outset it sought business, It became a scientific and medical leader, bringing in Connaught Laboratories, now Sanofi Pasteur, and Sunnybrook Veterans Hospital, and York University and Seneca College. And it became, as they called it, downtown, uptown.
Yes, when you go downtown and if you say, I live in North York or I live in Willowdale, they think we live in a different hemisphere. They'll say things like, oh, what's past Yonge and Eglinton? You live way up there? Do you think that North York now, because we actually went the other way and amalgamated back into Toronto, do you think we still have our own identity?
I do. I think people who live in North York still think they live in North York. They live in Willowdale. They live in the near Bathurst and Shepherd. They live in Don Mills, and so on. And so we have our own identity still.
I just want to share something that happened to me with regard to the words North York. So when I was a young mom and I, wanted to meet other moms, I started a Facebook group. And I thought, okay, I want to meet other moms because I figured I wasn't the only lonely mom out there. And I named it North York Moms. But I didn't really think about how large North York was. I was thinking about the immediate moms that I met in my, Mommy and Me meetup that I was part of. Had I known, I might have named it Willowdale Moms or something smaller. But yeah, so my little group of 10 moms is now over 10,000 moms.
Oh my, that's wonderful.
Yes, it is.
That's wonderful.
It is a beautiful community. We share resources and encouragement. We've helped women leave abusive relationships. We really have been a village for each other. But it's far larger than I was prepared for, because North York is tremendous now, right? It spans, I think by definition, it goes to Victoria Park on the east, and on the west, it goes down to Lawrence and Weston. So it's not a small territory for sure.
Well, Mayor Tory today was saying that the population is 800,000. And I salute you for what you did. That's wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, I have to thank the words North York because it really opened it up for me. Can you tell me a little bit about the North York Historical Society and why it's such an important organization to you? Because for many in a younger generation, we probably have been very disconnected or never even connected to the history of the city in which we stand in. So perhaps you could share a little bit about why this organization is important and why it's important for us to learn more about the history of our community.
The society was formed in 1960 to save Gibson House, and which was in danger of being demolished and replaced by high-rise condos. And this, they were successful in saving it. And since then, we erect plaques at historical sites. We saved Dempsey Hardware Store, which was at Yonge and Shepherd, and which was a North York landmark, and it was in danger of being demolished. And we arranged for it to be shifted to a parkette near the North York Central Library. In addition, we have monthly programs, speakers on a variety of subjects. We've started a youth division headed by a young lady named Grace Sun, who is at high school. And we've started walking tours through historic areas of North York. For instance, recently did one through the Hogs Hollow area.
That's wonderful. It's funny when you say in the 50s, a group of neighbors banded together to fight a development. And, that is a story as old as time, it seems, because that is still the story in, the current version of North York, and especially in Willowdale. There is a constant push and pull between the community and developers. Perhaps there are fewer historical buildings to preserve, but certainly, just preserving the shape of the community is something that a lot of residents are passionate about.
Well, I happened to go into the Empress Walk shopping center today, just before the ceremony. And I noticed that they had a big blown up picture of the original fire hall and the original municipal building, which were at the corner of Yonge and Empress. So the past is present.
Oh, where is that?
So that Empress Walk is a shopping center at
Mhm.
the corner of Yonge and um,
An Empress.
across from the North York Civic Center. And if you walk through the center towards the elevator, that's where the pictures
Oh,
are.
usually when I walk into that mall, I'm chasing my kids or something. So I think I missed that. That's wonderful to know that there's a nod to history in Empress Walk. So everyone who's listening, let us all open our eyes when we walk in next time. You had mentioned before we went live that you found some history about the early days of Willowdale, and I think that would be especially special for our community to hear about.
Thank you. Well, I'm sure everybody is familiar with Cummer Avenue and just north of Yonge and Finch. And that's named after what people regard as the founder of Willowdale, a man named Jacob Cummer. And he was a German-born United Empire loyalist who moved to Canada following the American Revolution, arriving in 1797 with his young family. I'm sure you all know that the United Empire loyalists relocated to Canada because they wanted to continue to be part of the British Empire, which Canada was. And Jacob Cummer was a jack of all trades. Excuse me, I'm reading this. He was a farmer, a mill operator. He owned a tinsmith shop, and he was a self-trained doctor and veterinarian. And he was held in such high esteem by other settlers that the area was called Cummer's Settlement. So Willowdale wasn't always Willowdale. The name Willowdale came into use in the 1850s, and it originally was two separate words, willow and dale. And David Gibson, as in Gibson House, a prominent citizen who owned land west of Yonge and present-day Parkholme Road, came up with the name inspired by the many willow trees in the area. And at first, Willowdale wasn't big Willowdale. It was sandwiched between a village to the north called Newtonbrook and a village to the south called Lansing. And now they're one big happy family, but each place still thinks of itself as Lansing, Newtonbrook, and Willowdale. And Willowdale really began to boom after the Second World War, as I said, because young families were looking for places to live. And okay, Lily, guess how much land cost a foot in the 1940s?
Oh, I will make a guess. Let's say $50.
You're a little high. It was $2 a foot.
Oh my goodness.
So people,
Wow.
so people were able to afford to move into Willowdale and to buy fairly large lots.
Wow. I think, what is the price now per foot? I think it's a few $100s now, I think.
Well, yeah, I guess
Yeah.
many places houses now are worth $1 million or more.
Yeah. And I think for a lot of land with an unlivable house in Willowdale, the going rate is, between 1.5 and 2 million for just a house that is a project. So very hard for, that picture of young families looking for a place to land. Willowdale is harder and harder for that to be the place to land. I think a lot of young families land in condos, and that's a good starting point. But eventually, people want a little bit more space, and then they really struggle because we want to stay in the neighborhood, but it's hard to find something that's affordable. So yeah, $2. But what you said that really moved me was this idea of Willowdale was planted in 1850. Like, we say the words Willowdale all the time. I think I say it almost every day because we have after the Young Street tragedy, we actually came up with this movement called We Love Willowdale, and we have We Love Willowdale t-shirts. But now when I say We Love Willowdale, I'm thinking of 1850 and just how long that banner has held a community together, even though it's morphed over the years in terms of what geography it covered. But many people have stood under the banner of Willowdale since 1850.
Yes.
Wow,
Good
that's
point.
special.
I wondered if I might add that Willowdale was and still is the power center of North York. Um, North York's first municipal building, fire hall, hydro commission, police station, high school, Earl Haig, movie theater, were all in Willowdale. Willowdale was the location of North York's first telephone exchange system. St. John's Rehabilitation Center in Willowdale opened in 1937. It was the Toronto area's first rehabilitation hospital. And when the Yonge Street subway was extended northward in the 1970s, it went through Willowdale, which attracted a lot of people and businesses. And the North York Center in central Willowdale at Yonge Street is regarded as the hub of all North York as well as of Willowdale.
Wow. So this main strip that we have was already a main strip back in the day.
Yes.
Now, you had also mentioned that there are some famous names that are associated with our community. Maybe you could share some of those.
Thank you. Herb Carnegie, Canada's first black hockey star, was born in Willowdale in 1919. Maisa de la Roche, the author of the best-selling genre books, a multi-generation family soap opera series that took place in Canada, lived in Willowdale in the early 1940s in a mansion at Bayview and Steeles. The very first Miss Canada, 1946, Marion Saber, lived in Willowdale. Willowdale was the birthplace and early boyhood home of Lester Pearson, Canada's 14th Prime Minister. Willowdale resident Winifred Roach Leusler made history in 1951 as the first Canadian to swim the English Channel. Mitchell Field Community Center, where a lot of us got anti-COVID vaccinations, is named after a Willowdale politician named George Mitchell, who was a reeve, or the then term for mayor of North York in the 1940s. And there are more. America's Got Talent host Howie Mandel was born in Willowdale.
Oh.
Lloyd Robertson, chief news anchor of CTV Nightly News for many years. two members of the rock band Rush, Geddy Lee and Alex Lyston. And in their song, The Necromancer, they have this line: "As gray traces of dawn tinge the eastern sky, the three travelers, men of Willowdale, emerge from the forest shadow."
As you're saying these names and stories, I just think, wouldn't it be great if there was a Willowdale Hall of Fame somewhere or stars somewhere, just for us to recognize and be able to trace that history?
Super idea.
Yeah, I would love to see that, just because, there is a huge influx of people, new people to Willowdale. And having a sense of history also strengthens our sense of identity.
That's right.
So if we had a Hall of Fame that people could visit, even if they are new Willowdalers, they could say, hey, I live in the place where, Lester B. Pearson, former prime minister, was born and raised. And maybe one day my children can be prime minister. You could have some dreams based on the people that you meet in the Hall of Fame. So, okay, Susan, maybe that'll be our next project.
I'm sure you can do it. You're a wonderful organizer.
What does it feel like for you, for someone who's seen all of this, researched it, lives in it, is passionate about the history, to see the tremendous transformation and development of this community? How has it impacted you?
Well, one of the things I appreciate and I think is great for Willowdale is that as Toronto in general has, it's become multinational and multicultural over the years. And the other thing I like about Willowdale is, although it's very much developed, there are still a lot of nice parkettes and walking trails. I live in Don Mills, and there's one near me called the Moccasin Trail, which is beautiful. And I like Willowdale.
Because some people, a lot of people who live in the community sometimes complain, right? There's more and more condos, there's new developments happening. But as the density increases, so does the diversity of people and palates. So the types of restaurants that we're able to enjoy has, I think, definitely diversified, at least in the, I think I've been here almost 14 years now, and it's already a little more diverse than it was when I first arrived. So definitely there's benefits, but we always hear about complaints about traffic and safety because, with density also comes more complexity, as in any big city.
Yes.
Have you experienced anything nostalgic when you're walking around Willowdale? What do you miss the most about the good old days of North York or Willowdale?
Well, I got back far enough to the original Central Library, which is on the location where the present very modernistic structure is. And the original one was about a block long and about, I think, one floor high. And it was named after the founder of the North York library system, a lady who lived in North York and Willowdale named Gladys Allison. And I later lived at around Bayview and Steeles. And when I was a child, many decades earlier, my family would go for a drive in the country to Bayview and Steeles, which was just open farmland then.
I wish the country was that close to us now.
Yes.
We have to travel quite a bit to see the country. What are your hopes for the future of Willowdale?
I hope that it continues to have its individualistic character, and that we continue to all get along, because diversity is a wonderful thing. I hope that it retains its mixed use character of housing and light industry and business. And I hope I continue to live here.
Did you know that there is a Facebook group for people who are fans of Willowdale? So people who grew up in the 70s in Willowdale in particular, but I think the umbrella is much bigger now. I believe there's over 20,000 people in that Facebook group. And there is such a positive spirit about their love of Willowdale. What do you think it is about Willowdale that causes people to, I think, connect to it as part of their identity?
I think partly because within the neighborhood of Willowdale, there are smaller neighborhoods, and you feel connected. And there's so much to do in Willowdale, from going on hikes, as I mentioned, to a wonderful variety of restaurants. There's the Performing Arts Theater, and it's although it's a big community, in some ways it feels like a nice, small, folksy community.
I think you've hit the nail on the head. Although it's big, it feels small. It feels personal. And I see that in the Willowdale in the 70s group and even in our own Willowdale Neighbors Connect Facebook group. I see the caring that people have for each other, and I see the positivity that people have in a world that is increasingly divisive. And, there are challenging issues that do come up, but overall, I do see the goodness, and that maybe it's like a small town feel that we want to have. And I think that picture of Dempsey hardware store kind of captures, I think it's not a public building anymore. It's used for some program. So whenever I walk by it, I do feel this, like a feeling of history. Like there was a simpler time when that building was a store and it was part of a community.
Yes.
And I think we all long for that sense of belonging to a community like that.
Yes. Well put.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Susan, for sharing your heart with us and your history. We just have a few more questions, which are part of what we call the Willowdale Rapid Fire Round. And that just helps us get to know a little bit more about how you see and experience Willowdale. What is your favorite spot to hang out in Willowdale?
The North York Central Library.
The new design that they have a 3D printer and a sewing place in the upstairs section.
Yes.
So I think they did a fabulous job designing it, and it is now used in such diverse ways, more than just, reading books.
Excuse me.
What is your favorite place to eat in Willowdale?
I have to confess that I haven't been to a Willowdale restaurant recently because, as I confessed earlier, I live in Don Mills. Forgive me.
We won't hold it against you. You're still historically Willowdale. You're still under our umbrella. Don't worry. Well, one day when you come back to North York Center, I missed you today, we should have lunch together, and I could.
Oh, I'd like that.
Yeah, I could take you to one of my favorite Chinese noodle shops that I have fallen in love with in our community.
Terrific. Thank you.
You're welcome. What is a hidden gem that you have found in Willowdale, if you wouldn't mind sharing?
Excuse my pausing for a moment. Maybe Earl Bell's Park,
Mm.
because it has historic links. The Bell's family goes back to the early days of North York, and it's right in the midst of a lot of urbanization. So it's a little respite.
We are so lucky to have that. Was that gifted to the city by the Bales family, or how did it come to be named Earl Bales Park?
I'm not sure. You stumped me.
Oh no, sorry.
I'm sorry. I have to say I don't know. There was a member of the Bales family who was in politics, and I don't know whether that. I have to look it up. I'm so sorry.
That's okay. I too appreciate Earl Bales. I've actually had the opportunity to see a few sunrises there, and to be able to, within a 5 or 10-minute drive, see a sunrise over water is something very special in the middle of the city. So I agree with you that Earl Bales is a hidden gem, and we're really lucky that we have it in our midst.
I'm sorry. What I'm doing is trying to. There's this book called Pioneering in North York by a lady named Patricia W. Hart, which was published in 1968. She has a lot in it about the Bales family, and I'm going to have to reread it and find out about that park.
Well, no pressure. If you send us the answer in the next few weeks, I could just share it with people after tonight's episode. It's fine.
Okay.
And what is your most memorable North York moment?
I guess it's really not a personal one for me, but the one I find most exciting was the capture of the Boyd gang in 1952. They were notorious bank robbers, and they had escaped from the Don jail and headed up to North York, and their capture was really big news. So I find that.
See, we really need, I don't know, something to share these stories. These are wonderful stories, and so many people are moving into North York, into Willowdale, and we don't carry any of this with us, which it would really, I think, enrich our journey here if we just knew more of these stories. So people can find out more by reading Susan Goldenberg's column, which you can find in the North York Mirror or Toronto.com. You could probably find archived articles, right, Susan?
Yes.
So there's probably lots more that we can learn, and we're so grateful that you took the time tonight to share a few of these stories with us.
Thank you for your interest.
Amazing. Thank you so much on behalf of all of us, Susan, for joining us tonight. That was awesome. I got to attend your talk about the Boyd gang, and I remember it's a really incredible story. They need to make a movie about that ASAP. So I hope you do another one of those talks on that topic, because it's really exciting. And yeah, I think, having these, we get to have these stories, and we're lucky to have historical places. I know that this coming weekend on Saturday, the 18th, the Willowdale Central Ratepayers Association is doing a barbecue at the historic John Mackenzie House. So that's like a neighborhood-wide barbecue where people, we can get together, be at a historic space, and make memories together now. So we'll be there. Our NeighbourLink team is going to be there, and I'm excited to meet neighbors, and we'll have our We Love Willowdale t-shirts and hot dogs. It's going to be fun. It kicks off our Meet Your Neighbor week, Susan. So we're doing this. We piloted it last year. And once again, this year, we're inviting and encouraging neighbors to host little meetups, either on their driveway or in a local park with the people who live on their street or on their floor, and just, get to know their neighbors. I know Lily and I last year kind of like knocked on the doors of the people who lived around us and said, we're going to be on our driveways at this time, come by, bring a snack if you want, bring a game. And we hope that this coming week, the 18th to 25th, will be a time for neighbors to connect and share memories, whether they've been, living here for 50 years, 40 years, just moved in. And then next Saturday, we hope you'll come out, Susan, to our Willowdale Yard Sale Day. That's on the 25th. So there's going to be yard sales all over the neighborhood. And then we're also hosting a market at Spring Garden Church. So that's going to be, I think already we have over 30 vendors. There's artisans, there's yard sales, there'll be mom-to-mom sales. So feel free to head to our website, neighborlink.org, to learn more about Yard Sale Day and Meet Your Neighbor Week. And continue to meet the organizations that are in your neighborhood, like the North York Historical Society. So head to their website. It's going to be scrolling at the bottom of the screen right now. It is, where is it here? I have their social media here. So it's North York HS on Instagram and Twitter, and their website is nyhs.ca. And then we're at neighborlink.org. So it's gonna be a good week. Thank you so much, Susan, for joining us tonight. I always love talking to you or hearing you talk, because you are a gem. We are lucky to have folks like you and Marla and Bill and Glenn and your whole team preserving our neighborhood's history. So thank you so much.
And thank you both so much.
All right, without further ado, let's dance it out and celebrate 100 years. Let's celebrate and get excited for the next 100 years in Willowdale and in North York. Let's dance it out. Good night, Willowdale. We'll be back next week, same time, same place, new neighbors.